Hey everyone, welcome back to my fantasy football channel. My name is Evan, and this is Evan Jake Sports. On this channel, I like to look at the data and what the data says for projections for how players are going to perform in fantasy football this year. And I use that data to rank where players are going to finish. And in this video, we're going to be ranking the top 25 running backs in fantasy football. Starting things off at running back 25, we have Trevion Henderson. Henderson's a rookie this year for the New England Patriots. Should assume the RB1 role, if not at the beginning of the season, by at least week 2 or 3, as he gets familiar with the speed of the NFL. We are seeing in preseason right now, at least the first game is all we've seen. He returned a touchdown, 100 yards, I should say a kick return 100 yards, and then proceeded to have a lot of receiving plays as well as rushing plays that resulted in positive performance for the team. So looking to get 1,100 all-purpose yards this year, 6 touchdowns on 29 receptions. I think as we get closer to the season and see more of what Trevion can do, assuming he plays in more preseason games, these projections will go up. So stay tuned for those as they come out. After each preseason game, I'll release an updated video if there needs to be one that comes out. Our next running back is going to be Brian Robinson of the Washington Commanders. Played 14 games last year. Great offense. He's the best running back on the team right now. So they do have a run-happy quarterback, but they're also a very pass-first offense. And Brian Robinson looks to do the same thing he did last year. So again, he had 11.6 points per game last year. Probably going to get 10.5 this year, with maybe the addition of one more touchdown in there as the offense improves, probably gets in the red zone a little bit more with the addition of Deebo Samuel. Our next running back is going to be Tony Pollard at 23. He played all but one game last year. Looks to get slightly less rushing yards, but overall the same amount of total yards. Probably going to get the same target share again this year if Tyjae Spears misses any time. Tony Pollard's upside is going to skyrocket, as he'd be the only running back in the backfield capable of using that type of workload. Same stats as last year, so I'm just going to move on. They do have Cam Ward as a quarterback this year. He's a rookie. Might tend to run the ball a little bit more than push his passing ability past what they're comfortable with starting off. So that mixed in with the possible Tyjae Spears minor injury could give Tony Pollard some pretty good upside. Moving on to David Montgomery. Played 14 games last year. Detroit Lions running back. Detroit finished top of the NFC last year. And he had 15.6 fantasy points per game. Probably going to drop a little bit down to 12.1. They lost Ben Johnson in the offense. Don't see Detroit Lions scoring any less points than they did last year. With that being said, I do think his rushing touchdowns are going to drop a little bit from 12 to 9. His total yards are pretty much the same as they were last year, maybe up by 50 or so. Not a huge difference, and then he's going to keep the same amount of receptions. So expect a repeat performance from David Montgomery with just a little bit less touchdowns. Joe Mixon is going to be the last of these 5 before we move on to the next set of running backs. And in the games he played last year, only missing 3. He had 17.2 fantasy points per game. That's going to drop down to 12.3, mostly due to a little bit less rushing yards, and he is going to maybe miss some time at the beginning of the season due to an injury he experienced in the offseason. His touchdowns, as a result of possibly missing time, are going to drop by about 3, and he stands at our RB21 for 2025. Moving on to the top 20, we have DeAndre Swift, Chuba Hubbard, Aaron Jones, Jonathan Taylor, and Kenneth Walker. Starting with DeAndre Swift, he played every single game last year. I mentioned Ben Johnson left the Lions. He is now joining the Bears. And on the Bears, they not only improved their offensive coordinator with Ben Johnson, but they also improved their offensive line. With all these improvements, we can see DeAndre Swift at least staying as productive as he was last year, if not increasing productivity. And that'll land him in the top 20 for running backs this year. Our next running back is going to be Chuba Hubbard of the Carolina Panthers. They did add Rico Dowdle, I think is how you pronounce his last name, or it's Dowdle, and should receive the same amount of workload as last year. Maybe a little bit less fantasy points because of the possibly split backfield now, dropping down from the 16 points he had last year to the 13 he's projected for this year. Slightly less total yardage than last year. Still is a very good receiver upside at 45 receptions. Same production as he had last year in that category. But I do think this offense is going to be slightly better, meaning more red zone opportunities. And so I think those touchdowns can stay high as he's projected to get right now. Speaking of good offenses, our next running back is going to be Aaron Jones of the Minnesota Vikings. And I think he's going to do as good as he did last year. I don't think he's going to push beyond what he did last year just because we added Jordan Mason this year. And I say we just because I am a Vikings fan. So I do think his rush yards per attempt can go up. So he might not get as many opportunities, but I do think his productivity when he does get attempts is going to go up. He's projected 5.2 rush yards per attempt compared to the 4.5 he had last year. Same amount of touchdowns as he had last year. I do believe we're going to be a better offense than last year with the improvements of the O-line, possibly, hopefully, better improvement of the quarterback play from Sam Darnold, who still won us 14 games last year, to J.J. McCarthy. J.J. McCarthy does like the Aaron Jones style running back more than a Jordan Mason running back because he has the check down ability. Aaron Jones is a better pass catcher and all that. So I think Aaron Jones is a solid pick for running back this year at our 18th. Moving on to Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor is in an offense this year with a healthy Anthony Richardson, who does like to run the ball. That does mean there is a possibility for more open lanes when you have that quarterback threat too, and it's not just the running back who can run the ball. With that being said, in the 14 games he played last year, he did average 17.6 points per game, and that's going to drop down to 13.2 this year, mostly due to possibly less rushing touchdowns. Again, with a rushing quarterback, there's probably going to be less chances for rushing touchdowns, like we see with Jalen Hurts and Saquon, getting those goal line touches and so on. So I think Jonathan Taylor is still good enough to be a RB17. I know he's being taken higher than that, but I don't think, based on his injury history and what his offense is looking like this year, that he should be taken much higher. Kenneth Walker is going to be the last of these five at 16. He got 16.5 points per game last year, projected to get 13.8 this year. Played 11 games last year, so if he does play all 17, it would make sense that his total yardage would go up, that total yardage being 1,200, and his touchdown should also go up. I don't know if the offense is going to improve a whole lot with Sam Darnold over Geno Smith, but they do have a very good offense. They added Cooper Kupp, Ken Beal, still a Triple Crown winner in the past, so we'll see how well the offense does. I can see a little bit more split work with Zach Charbonnet. That being said, it's not the purpose of this video, but I would handcuff Zach Charbonnet with Kenneth Walker if you were to draft him this year. Moving on to the top 15. James Cook starts this list, followed by Chase Brown, James Conner, Bucky Irving, and Christian McCaffrey. But going back to Chase Brown real quick, he had 16 games played last year and averaged 16.7 points per game in those, and looks to do the exact same production. If you look at his numbers right now, he should get those same numbers, and I think I could have put in last year's numbers in here because he's projected to do the exact same with the exception of the touchdowns. I think Vegas had him at 8 to 10 touchdowns last year on the rushing side, and he had 16. So blew that out of the water. I don't expect him to do the same this year. It's kind of an anomaly, especially because Vegas usually isn't that wrong ever. And so his touchdowns are probably going to drop by 5 or so, and that's where I have him at, which would put him at that 13.8 points per game, but still a top 15 running back that I would consider drafting. If you do draft James Cook, keep in mind that Ray Davis is a goal line potential running back that I might draft with James Cook, not to be necessarily a handcuff, but because there is that possible fight in the locker room going on for who's going to be that running back. I love Chase Brown as a pick. Chase Brown has a lot of receiving upside that we saw last year once he started getting the starting work. And once he had 80% of the snap share, he was actually averaging over 20 points per game last year. But even with the attempts that he had at running back, less than that 80% snap share, he was still getting 16 points per game. I expect a lot of good things from Chase Brown this year in an offense where they're completely healthy right now, knock on wood, and they just have an overall great team that usually comes from behind in as far as play style goes. So a running back who's able to have receiving work is great, and their offense is led by Joe Burrow, who's probably the best passer in the NFL right now. So Chase Brown, love him. Same stats as last year, same amount of touchdowns as last year. I expect him to do great things this year. James Conner is going to be next on the list. And James Conner had 15.7 points per game last year. 14.3 is his projection this year. Looks to have the same production. I expect more red zone opportunities this year. At the same time, I expect those to be more air opportunities this year. His touchdown total's the same, but they moved around his rushing touchdown to a receiving touchdown. So still coming in at 9 total touchdowns, but I do believe they're going to try passing the ball a little bit more. Hopefully Marvin Harrison is able to improve a little bit and get them into the red zone a little bit more. James Conner's great to pair with Trey Benson as far as the handcuff, and he will be our running back 13 this year. Bucky Irvin played every single game last year and was phenomenal in all his showings. Same projection again for him last year to this year, possibly getting more touchdowns. I do think their offense is going to improve even more this year than they were phenomenal last year. Might see a decrease in target share just because of all the wide receivers they do have. With that being said, I do think their improvement in the offense is going to lead to more red zone opportunities and therefore more touchdowns. He had 8 last year, probably going to get 10 this year. Last player before the top 10 is Christian McCaffrey. I know what you're saying. Christian McCaffrey is always injured, yada, yada, yada. He was the cover last year, not the cover this year. He was able to rest all last year. They say he's healthy this year. Again, that's training camp. Everybody's healthy in training camp and the off season. So take it with a grain of salt. He played 4 games last year and had 12 points per game in all those. It's really hard to project what 4 games can get you for a whole season, but I don't have him as a top 10 running back right now just because he could be injured. In which case, if you do draft Christian McCaffrey, you have to draft Isaac Guerendo. He's like second on the depth chart on whatever app you use. So make sure you get his handcuff in case he's injured, because worst case scenario, you wasted a late round pick and Christian McCaffrey's healthy the whole year and then you're not complaining. So Christian McCaffrey's looking to get 54 receptions. He's obviously a pass catching running back. He was great 2 years ago when he was fully healthy, and San Fran went to the Super Bowl. Got a touchdown almost every week that year and is looking to get 10 total touchdowns this year. So moving on to finally the top 10 running backs. Starting things off with the number 1 running back off the board in this year's draft, Ashton Jeanty. He's projected 15.3 fantasy points per game as a rookie with 45 receptions. It looks like 1,500 all-purpose yards and 12 touchdowns, which is amazing for a running back. He's a great prospect, obviously a great running back. He's on a team with no running back competition. He's probably going to be probably second option on the team. I don't think he's going to beat Brock Bowers out for first, but he will beat out Jacoby Myers for second, yep. And so I think they're going to be a really high-scoring offense. I don't know how well their defense is going to do this year or not. I didn't look into their defense yet. But if they ever have to play from behind, his receiving upside goes up significantly, in which case he'd be an even higher pick. Again, haven't seen much of him, and in the game he did play in the preseason, he had 3 snaps for negative yardage, or 3 rush attempts for negative yardage, so it's not really a good look on him. Then again, it probably didn't mean anything. The backups came in and had a lot of yards, so I have confidence in Ashton. I don't believe he's a first-round pick this year, unless you're in Dynasty. So he's going to be our 10th running back. Moving on to Breece Hall. Played 16 games last year. Kind of rare for him because he was injured a little bit in the last few years. So played 16 games last year, averaged 15 points, looking to improve that to 15.5. I know a lot of people think that there's going to be a running back by committee. That's not what these numbers are showing us. Braylon Allen's a good pick if you want to pair him with Breece Hall. If Breece Hall were to go down, Braylon Allen would probably take on that workload. Getting similar yardage as last year, a little bit more by maybe about 150 yards total. Touchdown should increase a little bit. I do think the play style should increase with Justin Fields at the helm of the offense. Justin Fields is the quarterback for the Jets and likes to run the ball with his feet. That opens up room for Breece Hall to have more gaps and do some more fake out plays and all that. Justin Fields also has one of the highest check down rates for quarterbacks. A check down is when you pass the ball and kind of dump it off to your running back just along the line of scrimmage. So it counts as a reception, which in PPR is 1 point, just a free point. So Breece Hall is really good at catching the ball. As you can see, he's going to get 60 receptions this year. So I think Justin Fields is a good upgrade for Breece Hall, and that's worthy of putting him at number 9. Kyren Williams is going to be next, and I think he can fluctuate this year. I think he's going to end up moving up as we get more information on the Matthew Stafford injury. Matthew Stafford's the quarterback for the Rams, and right now currently has a little bit of it's either shoulder or back injury right now. If he is unable to play or is limited in playing, I don't think they're going to be passing the ball that much. Kyren Williams is not that big of a pass-catching running back, so he will thrive getting his workhorse load that he loves getting, and will probably get more than his projection now, which is already running back 8. He could maybe sneak into that close to 5. I don't know if he'll ever cap the top 5 for preseason projections, but I think his floor is definitely set at 15.6, and his ceiling could be even higher if that injury were to create an issue for the team. But stats-wise, same as last year right now. He's set to repeat last year's numbers, which got him 17.2 points per game. He's at 15.6 right now because there's a slight drop in a little bit in total yardage and then 2 less touchdowns than he had last year for projection. So again, if that injury were to get any worse, we're monitoring it right now, and I'll adjust these rankings as the offseason progresses. Moving on to number 7, we have Alvin Kamara. I know he's old, but in PPR, which is what these rankings are for, he does amazing. 69 receptions for, a total of 1,500 yards, almost 500 of them being receiving, is ridiculous for running back. The quarterback room is uncertain right now. He's pretty much the only running back in the room outside of Kendrick Miller, who is injured half the time. I mean, you can argue Alvin Kamara is injured a little bit too, but he did play 14 games last year, getting 19 points per game in those. Dropping down to 15.6 is a little ridiculous. We can see age isn't really a problem, like as we see with Derrick Henry coming up next. So I think Kamara is going to do really well this year, and I love taking him in the 4th or 5th round, depending on if you're a 10 or 12 person team. So Derrick Henry is going to be next. He's aging, but still played 17 games last year, getting almost 20 fantasy points per game, and he's projected 16.4 this year. His receptions don't mean a whole lot because he's not really a big pass catcher, but they're projected to be the same. His receiving touchdowns are going to drop a little bit. His rushing touchdowns might drop a little bit. I think it's Keaton Mitchell. He's 23 right now, young running back who is most likely, in my opinion, to be sharing the workload with Derrick Henry. And with Derrick Henry, we can see his rushing yards drop, not because he's not capable of doing it, but because he is old and he is so good when healthy. I think they're going to try to preserve him a little bit more, and that's why we're seeing a little bit of drop in his total projected yardage, even though it's still at 1,700 all-purpose yards. And now for my favorite part, the top 5 running backs. We have at 1, Jahmyr Gibbs, at 2, Saquon, 3, Bijan, 4, Achane, and 5, Jacobs. Starting off with Josh Jacobs, he had 17.4 fantasy points per game. I loved reaching for him and getting him in the second round last year. And he's projected the exact same stats. I know you can't see the stat screen I'm looking at right now, but all of these this year numbers and last year numbers are the exact same. Same amount of receiving yards, receptions, touchdowns dropped a little bit from last year, probably only going to get 2 less, and that's why we saw a drop in fantasy points per game. There's no competition in the running back room, and there's so many wide receivers that they're going to be in the red zone so much, and he's just going to have so much production this year. And I'm going to like taking him in the second round again this year. Speaking of second round players, if Devon Achane does fall to the second round and I'm able to pick him up, I'm picking him up every single time in the second round, regardless of who else is there, unless there's like some wide receivers that somehow fall, but they're not going to. So Devon Achane should not fall to the second round, but if he does, you need to draft him because he is a top 4 running back this year, projected even more points than he got last year. Last year, he played every single game and had 17.6. He's projected half a point higher at 18.1. Probably the same receptions as last year, same rushing yards as last year. The difference is he's going to have more touchdowns because they have Tua back. If Tua's healthy, Tua should not be running the ball. We saw what happened the last 2 times he did it last year. He had concussions. So Achane should be rushing the ball now. It's a little iffy on who his backup should be. Honestly, I'd prefer other handcuffs to top running back picks than Achane's handcuff. What I mean by that is take like Breece Hall's backup running back or Henry's backup in Keaton Mitchell over Achane's, just because Achane's is a little less certain. Achane's projected a split in touchdowns. You see 14 on the screen. I'm seeing 7 rushing, 7 receiving touchdowns. And I do think his rush yards per attempt is going to increase. He's going to have better quality looks with a better quarterback and all that. He should stay relatively healthy. He had less than the 300 rush attempt threshold that we usually see cause injuries. Throughout the years, a running back who gets 300 rush attempts in a prior season is more prone to injury the following year. Going back and talking about players, Derrick Henry had over 300 last year, and they might be limiting him a little bit with that. Josh Jacobs was just on the threshold, might receive the same this year for rush attempts. So I hope those guys don't get injured. I never like injuries in fantasy football, regardless if I have the players or not. But it is something to monitor. I know people are a little iffy on Devon Achane's health. He did have a very healthy workload last year, healthy in the sense that it was both a lot of workload, but also healthy enough where he is going to stay healthy this next year, I believe. Speaking of health, Bijan Robinson, starting things off with that 300 rush attempts. He did have 304 rush attempts last year. I do hope he stays healthy this year because I love him as a running back pick this year if I don't get Jahmyr Gibbs. And if you do draft Bijan, I do believe you have to draft Tyler Algier just as a insurance, because Tyler Algier is able to pick up majority, if not all, of the workload if Bijan were to go down, and he's a great handcuff to have. Moving on to his stats. He had 20 points per game last year. I took him in the first round last year, paired him with Jacobs, and that was a great running back pair to have. He's projected little less than a point less this year at 18.9. And I think his touchdowns are going to stay fairly similar. They do have Penix, who is more of a rushing quarterback than Kirk Cousins was last year. But Bijan played in every game, and it looks like if he plays in every game this year, he's going to get the same stats. So Bijan should continue to be obviously a top 3, top 2, even the number 1 overall running back, I think is very likely for him this year. Speaking of best running backs, Saquon Barkley was the number 2 by a hair running back overall last year, and had 21.9 points per game last year, might drop to 19.1 this year. He did have 345 rush attempts and played fairly late into the postseason, obviously because he won the Super Bowl. Playing that late into a season, having that much wear and tear on your body, and also being the Madden cover could lead to some injuries. Being on the Madden cover has nothing to do with injuries, but there has been players in the past that have been on the cover and have gotten injured. I'm staying away from Saquon, not because I think he's a bad player, but because I know if I draft him, he will get injured, and I don't want to be subconsciously responsible for that. So if you're not worried about that and he does stay healthy, if Saquon doesn't get injured, he could be RB1 overall again this year. Phenomenal. He can hurdle players. He can catch the ball, break out for 100 yards on a play. But most likely going to have a little bit less workload this year by a hair. They used him a lot last year because there were some tight ends and wide receivers that went down with injury. Most notably, Dallas Goedert and A.J. Brown had some injuries. And so they had to run the ball more. That's all they had to do. That's all they could do with the offense. So now that they have the pass catchers back, assuming everybody's healthy, they're probably going to run the ball a little bit less. And with him running the ball less, he's going to get less chances for yards and touchdowns. So slight decrease, but yes, still a top 2 running back this year. And that leads me to number 1, Jahmyr Gibbs, who I see no flaws with this year. Had 21.4 points per game last year. 19.4 is his projection this year. We saw at the end of last year when David Montgomery went down, Jahmyr Gibbs is the number 1 overall running back by a long shot. He was able to put up 40 points in games for fantasy and get, 4 or 5 touchdowns against the Vikings in a game. It was ridiculous. And his ability to pass catch the ball, run the ball at a high rates, and all that is amazing. His rush attempts were the least over the last 2 running backs. The last 2 all had over 300 rush attempts. Jahmyr Gibbs was at 250. The Lions also, like I talked about David Montgomery earlier, the Lions used David Montgomery with Jahmyr Gibbs to go back and forth to try to keep the 2 healthy. Jahmyr Gibbs usually goes into the game to get those big plays when they need it, and they use David Montgomery for the more bruising plays to keep Jahmyr Gibbs healthy. Jahmyr Gibbs might be the best running back in the league, both as a fantasy-wise and as a just player. And we're seeing that with these projections right now. Honestly, if you go back and forth, I can go back and forth between Jahmyr Gibbs, Saquon, and Bijan for the number 1 running back this year. But right now, the numbers are saying Jahmyr has it by a hair. And being on one of the best offenses in the league and being probably the number 1 or number 2 option on one of the best offenses on the team goes to show how well he has the ability to do. And if you do draft Jahmyr Gibbs, it's hard to get his handcuff with David Montgomery, but it's not bad to try to go after David Montgomery if you do get Jahmyr, because if one of the 2 goes down, you have a really good running back and can win your leagues with those. So this is my list for running backs. If we click through them again, we have Gibbs at 1, Barkley 2, Bijan 3, HN 4, Jacobs 5, Henry 6, Kamara 7, Kyron 8, Breece Hall 9, GNT 10. We have McCaffrey 11, Bucky 12, Connor 13, Chase Brown 14, Cook 15, Kenneth Walker 16, Taylor 17, Jones 18, Chuba 19, Swift 20, and then finally Mixon, Montgomery, Pollard, Brian Robinson, and my favorite later round running back, Travion Henderson. So these are my top 25 running backs. Thank you all for watching. If you stayed to the end of the video, stay tuned for how these rankings are going to change as we get closer to draft. And once we get into the season, I will be doing weekly rankings for who you should pick up on the waiver wire and who you should be possibly targeting for trades and who you should be starting in your lineups based on matchups. So stay tuned for those to come out. As always, thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.